Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 179 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/2 for 1 studios, the best place to listen to content. And if you didn't know, subscribers, and let's be honest, you probably did not, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. They have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Kapow. And if you're on the YouTube channel, like I just mentioned 5 seconds ago, you would have already known that we are greeted today by the one, the only, the ultimate Fandalorian, Joel Williams.
What up, Vandalorians? I hope you're all doing well. We're all getting back into our Star Wars-ish. I have to listen to your blasphemies from Daniel, but that's fine. I'll accept that.
I'm ready to hear what I was wrong about.
I feel like
we've been many things.
I feel like we've been on. Me and Daniel have been pretty much locked in for most of what we're talking about today. And today we are talking episode 179 of the podcast, getting close to episode 200, everybody. And we're talking the first season, particularly this last episode, season finale of Ahsoka on Disney Plus, created by Dave Filoni. This last episode was directed by Rick Fumiyama, who is, as I've been saying for a year or two now, a couple years, he's the best Disney Plus Star Wars director we've had on the show, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and now Ahsoka. And yeah, let's kind of dive into this. I think real quick, I want to me and Daniel recap our thoughts on the show so far leading up to the finale. And then I want to hear Joel's thoughts, kind of catch the viewers up real quick. So for me, leading into the finale, I've been saying for a while, like, there's issues, of course, like pacing, some of the performances, the writing isn't 100%, but it's Star Wars. Like, none of these, Star Wars has never been perfect. And I think this show is what Star Wars needs, but there's a lot of room for improvement, especially if they want the general audiences to hop on board, especially for Filoni's movie coming up. And I've enjoyed it so far, but there is still some head scratchy kind of moments. Daniel, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in a similar spot. I think it's great. I think the core of it is what, like you said, we've needed from Star Wars for a while, which is just ambition and new ideas and a love for world building and telling interesting lore and stories like that and building the lore of Star Wars. Because we didn't get very much of that at all from kind of the first few Star Wars Disney Plus shows, in my opinion, or at least not good versions of it. So I really like I like at the core what they're doing. I do think it needs a little more polish, right? I think just in some of the execution, it's not quite there. I do, for being the titular character, I do feel like I didn't get as much from Ahsoka as I got from a lot of other characters. And that feels a little bit like it's not how I would do it. And it's not necessarily what I think maybe is the best version, but at the same time, what they're shooting for is so much more admirable and so much more exactly what they should be shooting for versus kind of what I would call safer entries we've had in the past with Star Wars. So I like it. I don't love it, but I want to love it, and I'm ready to keep loving what they're doing with it.
Joel?
Yeah, man. I will give Daniel that entirely. I do think that they are starting on a world building, and I don't want to jinx it, but it feels like that they finally said, hey, you know what, maybe we should let Dave do his thing, right? Because I think Disney has had his hand. We've talked about the situation with Book of Boba Fett and all that, which I still love. All right, I mean, you give me a Boba Fett Lawrence of Arabia any day of the week. That was probably one of the most interesting stories on how to expand Boba Fett. But I can see
like
cringe.
Yeah, it's like Lawrence of Arabia with no Lawrence of Arabia. I can see that part of it, maybe.
No, it's Boba Fett and Tatooine. That's all it is, and I love it. I think it's great. I think that's because what we talked about this before. I thought basically I said the Boba Fett we all grew up with in comics and stories was Mandalorian. All right, that's what they did. They did Mandalorian. So how do you do this? How do you do something with Boba Fett? And they did it. I think they should have kind of let him do his own story, move on from there. But here we are. Point is, we're talking about Ahsoka now. Ahsoka, I think it has the problem that most of these shows kind of have now, and I call it the Game of Thrones effect. Right, starts off incredibly slow because you're trying to like build everything up. Then all of a sudden, the last 3 to 4 episodes is wham, wham, wham. All right, here is everything you're looking for, and it gets more and more exciting, more in depth into it, and it's just fun. And I mean, the second I can definitely see that was a little bit slow in the very beginning. But I thought, okay, they're trying to catch everybody up, trying to say this is where people are. I get it. You're trying to do this little side story. You're even giving us a flashback of Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, which people ate that up and it was beautiful. But at the same time, like, the second you get us to the far side of the galaxy, we'll say that's what we're going to call their area. All right. That's when the story gets interesting. That's when you really start pushing it out and you get to see exactly who the big bad really is and how it's going to grow. And I'm 100% for that. I loved the ending. I know we'll get to that in a second, but I've enjoyed it because you're still giving me more Star Wars. You're expanding on it. I mean, I see Daniel's point where he's talking about you didn't focus enough on the title character, but you're getting her story anyway. And plus, the way it looks like now, we're going to get even more about Ahsoka the teacher. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I think there's this weird thing of, trying to balance the general audiences with the fanboys who watch Rebels. I've never seen all of Rebels, and I'm a huge Star Wars fanboy. And I haven't seen all of Clone Wars, and I'm a big Star Wars fanboy.
I watched all of Clone Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do my due diligence, and I watched all the recap videos and read all the other stuff and all the theory videos and those kind of things, trying to prep for these kind of things. But it's still like there's this balance of, okay, the people who just watched the sequel trilogy or the prequels or the original trilogy, what are they going to get out of this? Do they know any of these characters starting off? And I'm going to tell you right now, like, this is a deep cut Star Wars show in terms of the lore and the characters. And I think
it totally is.
It could be a detriment to it because, I love it that Filoni's getting to do Rebel season 5 and pushing the story beyond maybe the Skywalkers, even though not really also at the same time. But you also have to, what's the numbers? I think the numbers were on par with like Andor, which weren't great compared to something like Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is like sending the wrong message to Disney, right? Like
but Andor is brilliant though. I mean, you can't compare that because it's such a well done series.
It's brilliant, but like no one watched it though. That's my point, is that like
in the beginning times, but I think this is one of those, it's a slow burn that as you're expanding and more people come to the fandom, they start going back and looking at these things.
But Disney doesn't look at the long term. They look at what's the quarterly return on finances. And that's my point here, is that they can, and part of that is Kathleen Kennedy goes up there and announces a Rey movie. And so it's like, okay, that's going to bring in $1 billion probably. And then Filoni gets his movie, which I don't know. Does Daniel, you see what I'm saying, Daniel, of like this balance between like serving the general audience so they can make money to keep making these stories, but also.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ahsoka is great. I do think it's better significantly if you're caught up with like Rebels and stuff. I think it transforms even just your experience with it, in my opinion. And so it is a thing of like, as they continue the story, they need to make it maybe a little more accessible for everyone else too. It's kind of that Marvel problem that Marvel has of like, well, do I go see the new Marvel when I've missed the 3 previously, or I even know what's going on, kind of thing. I mean, I think, Disney and Star Wars are in a weird spot, and they have been since Last Jedi, and they still haven't figured it out. Sometimes we think they're going the right way, and then we're like, wait, what was that? You know what I mean? And so I think, what will Disney do with the reception? Because I think you're right. Like, everyone watched Obi-Wan Kenobi, but it got trashed critically and online in forums, and deservedly so, in my opinion. No one watched Andor, but it was nominated for Emmys. And I mean, I still think the best dialogue that has been in anything Star Wars ever was in Andor. It was Shakespearean Star Wars dialogue. And I think that is just amazing. So it's like, what does Disney prioritize? Because I think, something that Bruce said to us a while back is like, when we're watching things that aren't made to be stories, they're made to be content, you could really feel it, right? And I think this does not feel like content. This feels like, okay, we've got an idea, we've got a story, we've got characters, we're trying to go somewhere and do something and kind of tell this bigger story. Yeah, I think it's just so hard for me to read Disney in terms of like what what are they going to prioritize? What do they put more stock in? You know what I mean? And what will be how will they respond to the reception of this show? And so I think there is a layer of like, I like this, I'm not sure I can trust it yet. Not because of the show or Dave, because of Disney. Because I'm a little, it is that thing of like, they could pull up the rug out from this at any moment. You know what I mean? But
real quick, to be fair, like I just want to say that I'm not saying I don't want 5 more seasons of Ahsoka and I don't want Filoni's movie. I'm scared that they're going to pull the plug and give us Rey 5, 6, and 7 before we get to. To be fair, we have Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian that's going to be in this movie supposedly because it's the Mandoverse part, right? So like Disney could probably easily be like, we're going to sell tons of Baby Yoda toys based on that alone. But am I right to be afraid? I think so. Can I ask real quick, Joel?
Sure.
Just really quick, what did you think about season 3 of Mandalorian? Really quick.
I actually really enjoyed it. I liked it. I think you're trying to finish the reclaiming a Mandalore story, right? So I understood. I heard your grievances echoed throughout the galaxy.
Do you like Lizzo and Jack Black's appearances?
I thought it was fun. I really did. I really didn't have a problem with that. I know you guys didn't like it at all. I'm fine with that. I mean, I think the only time a guest appearance kind of threw me off, strangely, it wasn't that. It was when Flea showed up in Obi-Wan Kenobi. That one kind of threw me off a little bit.
Flea?
Yeah, Flea was in episode 1 of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Who's Flea?
Which one? Who was it?
Flea,
he's like an artist.
Yeah. Flea from the Chili Peppers, right?
Oh,
okay. He shows up as like one of the spice guys kidnapping little Princess Leia.
Kamal and Jolly didn't throw you off a little bit, just being him in the Star Wars universe?
Not really.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I mean, it's such a bigger world, and I like it when we start putting that kind of style of humor into Star Wars too, because that's kind of what that world is. I mean, maybe it's also some of the comics and stuff that I read that did that kind of thing with Star Wars. I like it. I think it's a good thing and goes forward there. But I think what basically Mandalorian season 3 did is it finished off that storyline. Right? We do know Mandalore has been reclaimed. We're working it up. So now you get to continue the story, which I'm sure they will, which is going to be, Lone Wolf and Cub, him teaching Grogu the ways of a Mandalorian.
Are we getting another Mandalorian season before the Filoni movie?
I would suspect so. I mean, Favreau reported that he had written season 4 when season 3 was in production, just like he did in the previous seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why they wouldn't. I don't know how season 3 did. I don't think it did as well as those other first 2, but it still has to be the higher tier in terms of body count for subscriber watchers. I don't know. But okay, so we kind of caught up a little bit, a little bit on the thoughts and opinions on some things. Let's kind of dive into the not really the second last episode. We can just kind of roll it all into the finale, just kind of our thoughts on the show overall. But we have Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra trying to get to Thrawn as he's with the Night Sisters. And
you're gonna skip the introduction to Thrawn. Oh man.
Well, I mean, it's a season overview, and we can talk all about this in context, but just kind of teeing up what the finale is trying to accomplish. And
tee it up, my good sir.
Yeah, so essentially, they're trying to stop Thrawn as Thrawn is trying to get back to, I'm going to say that our Star Wars galaxy, right? Carrying what we don't know, what kind of cargo we don't really know of yet. Would suspect it's probably either more things that are Night Sisters that are dead or stormtroopers that are dead. Don't know yet. But we have that storyline going on, and we also have Balin. Very little here, but he's trying to get to some unknown power. How do we kind of feel about some of these things? I want to talk about Sabine and her arc this season in terms of she's doing some pretty, I would say, significant force pushing, drawing the lightsaber, kind of like Obi-Wan does in episode 1. We have her thing. We have Ezra and his force powers being discovered. And it's still good old Ezra. We have Ahsoka, and still dealing with kind of, it seems like, some of her relationship with Anakin going to the finale. So kind of, Daniel, real quick, give me some thoughts about how you felt with the finale, how they tee things up. Do you think there's a better version of what we got? It was just kind of like go on.
I like the finale a lot. I thought zombie stormtroopers were amazing. Really, really liked that. And I know that that's a callback. There's some comics, with some zombie stormtroopers in the comics that are fun. So that felt kind of like another deep cut, and just a cool moment. I like the stuff with the Night Sisters. I love Thrawn. I mean, I think Thrawn kind of steals the show every time he's on scene. I'm ready to see him kind of get mad though, kind of like explode a bit. And I know that's kind of a big part of his character from the comics at least. And so I do want to see some of that coming in. There is this element of, the heroes are racing to a finish line that I had no expectation they were going to stop Thrawn. I mean, we wouldn't be getting all these other movies and stuff like that. So there is this small element of we got to stop Thrawn. And I at this point, I already know that's not going to happen. So there's just a little bit lack of stakes there, like believable stakes, I guess, just at a meta level. And I guess if I could change one thing, I don't know. I don't know how to fix that exactly. But anyway, altogether, I thought it was a great finale. I thought it set up the future really well. I loved the moment with Hera and Ezra towards the end, with Chopper coming out to him. That was fun. I thought it was great. I thought the action was really good. I thought it made me excited for what's next. So I think it did a good job of that.
Joel?
Man, I was very fond of this finale. I mean, you gave me some Empire vibes. It doesn't end on such a massive downer that Empire does, but I mean, look, you didn't quite get the goal you wanted to. Yes, we got Ezra back, but you guys are still stuck on the far side of the galaxy with apparently no way to get back yet. But then you've got all these other secrets going on that I think it's just a little more interesting. You have the continued training that's going to happen with Sabine, which, she's coming from Mandalorian to Jedi and kind of has her moment, just like Daniel talked about. We all love that. And I tell you what adds to the zombie effect of those stormtroopers is just the battle hardened, look of those stormtroopers. Because that's like my favorite thing. The second they show up, I'm just like, this is Caesar's Legion in Gaul. All right. They are battle hardened. They are loyal and they just look badass. I love that so much. So them coming back as zombies, I'm like, oh, this made it even worse.
Yeah. Easier to control for sure from Thrawn's perspective to control zombies, but they were kind of always zombies.
It makes me wonder if they all are. If that's what they all are.
I don't think they are.
Okay.
I wondered that too. I guess, and maybe it's a big red herring about all the body, but the way all those containers were lined up, they're lined up like garrisons, right? So, I mean, it looks like those. Looks like they were dead stormtroopers, and you go and get the Night Sisters to rise them back up. So now you've got an undead army. Fantastic. Let's see how that works. But I mean, just like you said, Thrawn steals the entire show. Now, I thought Ray Stevenson, God rest his soul, Titus Pullo for the win. He was amazing, and it kind of breaks my heart that he passed, just because I wanted to see that character more. And
I do feel like we didn't get quite. I was a little disappointed with how we got less of him as the season went on. Right?
Yeah, and again, plus because I think they had planned that. They're like, okay, your story is going to come out more in season 2, okay, and like, yeah, sure, we're good, and that's fine. But at the same time, now they're going to recast and get another guy, unless they make an agreement with the family and they CGI him, which
no,
that's a little disheartening.
No, there's no way they do that. There's no
striking for that, by the way. No AI.
Yeah, there's no way. I don't think that's a possibility.
I think that's
just for the best. Yeah, he was one season of television. Was like, I think they should recast Luke. We've said on the podcast, but it's different because Luke's been around for movies and comics.
I think they should recast the whole all the old characters. I mean, here's one take. I think it should have been Leia, a new recasted Leia showing up to save Hera at the last second.
I thought so too. I agree with that entirely. I think we should have done that. Now I love the fact that they actually brought in,
Anthony Daniels,
C3, but that's great. That's fun. We love that, but it should have been in both of them. Why not both of them?
Yes, exactly. And,
yeah, and that's part of the problem too. Is just again, this is innateness from Disney or Lucasfilm to just I guess they're just too afraid of it. They cannot see the vocal majority saying we're okay with it, because we want the heir to the empire to star, sure, Mando and Ahsoka, but we want it to be Luke, Han, and Leia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're heading the Republic. They're like the leaders of the new Republic. Like, why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
Do you know what I actually think it is? I think it's the Han Solo problem, right? The Solo movie problem.
And they're wrong.
But what happens?
Alden Ehrenreich was not the problem with that movie.
What happened? No, he's not. It's like, so what happened to Solo? The biggest problem with Solo that happened is it was so close. They released it so close to Last Jedi that people still all had that vitriol and venom from that it really kind of killed that movie. And like, yeah, there's a problem with that movie. We can have a whole conversation about that. Yes, but it's not a bad movie. And he does a great Han Solo. That kid was pretty good. Yeah,
I agree. And yeah, so that's part of the issue there too. It feels like you mentioned something, Joe, like well, it was designed for Balin to decrease his appearances to set up for season 2.
Yeah, that's
and part of my critique is, like, why does Disney look at HBO Max? When you're going to watch The Last of Us or a Severance or a Game of Thrones, that you're going to get an hour, 59 minutes, and then credits of event television. And I get it. The budgets are high. I get that.
It's also two different setups, right? So when you're dealing with HBO Max, right, you're still dealing with cable performance and time slots, right? Whereas Disney Plus,
I get the flexibility.
HBO Max is still on TV. They have to make certain runtimes.
Not Apple TV is not, though. Netflix is not. Look at Stranger Things. Sure. It's not on TV. But I get the flexibility that it provides. But why not? If you have the resources and the time, and why don't you give us that one scene of Balin interacting with the Mortis gods, essentially? And then it's still a tease, but I'm saying, like, there's why don't we have, first of all, it's like a show that I think you condense that, you could take a whole episode away of that show and still tell the exact same story, just based off cutting quicker, having dialogue set faster. You could.
No, I agree with that. I think
you could save at least 30 minutes out of the 6 episodes out of that show. That's 30 minutes that you could have devoted to something else. I just think there's a pace, and that's all I have to say. There's a pacing issue, and I feel like if this is your one and only chance, there's still things you could have done to go out swinging to get those numbers, to get it even bigger. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't mind them not showing me more. I agree. The pacing, I think you could just cut a lot of dead air out of the show. We're just reacting too long, guys. Way too long. Like the final shot of the final shot, like the amount of times that it's like Sabine looking beyond the camera and then Ahsoka looking beyond the camera, each for like 15 seconds each. I'm just like, wow, we're just spending a lot of time watching a character look behind us before. And I love seeing Anakin at the end. It's great. But I don't mind what they did with Balin. I think it's sad because of Ray Stevenson, and like it's sad that like
that's unfortunate.
We got less of him as it went on, and we're never gonna get that Balin again. But as long as like what they do next time with Balin's story, like as long as that's strong, this setup didn't bother me a lot. Like I feel like I'm assuming Balin's plot is going to somehow be a part of how Ahsoka and Sabine get back to the new universe and stuff.
That's exactly what it is. And then you also have his little apprentice too is now siding up with the bandits. And it's like, okay, so there's our continual pestering, antagonist for the next season. So
so look, I'm not upset with the story narrative. So to speak. I did watch Rise of Skywalker, last week. I threw it on. I ended up kind of watching about 80% of it as it was playing over the next day or over 2 days. And I'll say this, the story is what it is. Obviously, it's really hurt the overall narrative for me. But man, does that thing, it moves quick and it feels like Star Wars.
It's a fast pace. It does feel like Star Wars.
It's fast paced and it's got that direct. I mean, like, love or hate JJ, he can move a camera and it feels like an adventure. You know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like we took 3 or 4 episodes of Thrawn loading a Star Cruiser.
Yes, but like the downside is like, you're dealing with on Rise of Skywalker, you're in relying so heavily on nostalgia for that film, right? And and that's unfortunate with that, but that's a different conversation. But with Ahsoka, even though you get these these 3 episodes of him loading it up, you're still getting this whole entire storyline, even though, yeah, it's a little bit longer. You get the tactician battles where you start seeing Thrawn the tactician. I mean, like, one of my favorite scenes is the fact where all of a sudden it goes, they're engaging. Okay, bring it on the screen. So he's got his little battle map. It pops up and you just see, look at him. The man's already using his mind. He's using his tactics. Like, okay, who's this? Who's this? Who is there? Ahsoka's master? Skywalker. Son of all right, let's play.
Yeah, I mean, I love, again, the Thrawn stuff's great. Watching him, that's Matt Mikkelsen's brother, right? Watching him work, Lars Mikkelsen. Yes, that's watching him work is awesome, and I enjoy all of that. I listened to the first 2 books of the Thrawn trilogy.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of prepped for that. So
that's a whole different story, though.
whole different story, right? But
it's good though.
But then you cut to like Sabine and Ezra on the backs of whatever these awesome Star Wars creatures are that I think are perfectly Star Wars.
Great.
The little stone people. Yeah.
But it's like they're on this thing and like there's no sense of urgency. And they're like basically on camelback, right? And she's like, he's trying to catch him up over the last however many years, 5-6 years. And she's like, well, talk about it later. And it's just like, what's happening?
Well, she didn't want to tell him that she trusted the dark side guys, right?
Yeah.
Here's my question, Joel. Is there something you didn't like about the show?
Is there something I didn't like?
You didn't like? I'm not trying to shit on it. I just want to be. No. I know. I just want to be better. I liked it. I loved it.
And I understand you guys know this about me too. I'm very much a Star Wars fanboy. That I will wave the flag for almost all of it. When most people find problems with it, I'm like, I still enjoyed it. I loved exactly what I got. I think the only thing that I did not like about the Ahsoka series is they kept it really dark for the entire time, and I wanted just a little more vibrancy or something to it to give it more of a pop.
You mean color palette or like tone?
Tone. It's like a little more color to it. I know there's the threat of Thrawn and all that, and the only other thing I wanted, and you guys did touch on this, and I agree with that, is I wanted different characters pushing stuff out. I mean, I love the Star Wars characters we got. I love them showing back up, but I want some different people. I want some different people that are the X-Wing pilots. I want some different people that are, have leaning things. Because like I said, keep that universe growing. Let it get bigger and bigger and bigger. I want all these different parts playing with it. I mean, that's the charm that I want to see.
And I'll give them Balin. I think he was a standout. I think everyone agrees how great he was. And
Balin,
he's the best Dark Jedi we've had since Count Dooku.
Yes, and plus when he starts explaining everything, you're kind of like, crap, I get it.
Okay. And he feels dark, like Dooku-esque. Like he feels
he feels more Dooku-esque.
Wise, really, and he's not just overly aggressive and just like, Kylo Ren, I'm gonna just slice up doors when I'm mad. He's kind of
but that was part of the fun with Kylo Ren. That always basically he's an adolescent, Sith Lord.
Listen, I'm not sliding out Kylo Ren. He's literally the best part probably of the whole series, of the sequel trilogy. But yeah, no, I think like I agree. I think I said this earlier that Balin feels like the more nuanced version of Sith, where they really feel like they're choosing what's right, even if it has some, they have to break some eggs to make an omelet. They feel like that's the right course. You know what I mean?
Anarchist Siths. It's like I got to burn the whole thing down.
Yes, and I think I'm hopeful they recast that well.
I do too.
I don't know who would be the best. I mean, it's hard because he really owned that role and made it his own.
Liv Schreiber, I think
I saw that. Yeah, that could work. That could.
We could definitely
use actor. Right. Yeah.
He could do it, but I totally put in my resume and my headshot, so I'm going to be right back. So
I'll vote for you, Joe. I'd be happy.
You got the beard. That's for sure.
Look, they can have the hair on top. Let's do this thing.
There you go. That's 10 minutes in the chair. That's no big deal, Joe.
Right.
Question for you guys. I don't have a problem with it. I know there's a lot of basis for it in the Clone Wars and Rebels, but we're kind of starting to see the introduction of magic inside Star Wars, and it could be argued that it's just the Force, kind of like how the MCU does it. Magic is just science we don't understand. So the magic could be Force we don't understand, but let's call it magic for a second. How do you guys feel about this with the Night Sisters, zombie stormtroopers, mixing with this force and the galaxy we've known it so far?
I kind of went to the go ahead, Daniel.
No, I was telling you to go ahead. That's what I said.
Oh, no, thank you, sir. So I went about this whole thing a little ass backwards. All right. My first introduction to the Night Sisters is Jedi Survivor. All right.
Oh wow.
Our Fallen
Great
Order
game.
was the first time I've seen it. Both of them are great games. Love them.
They are.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So, but that's when I first hear about the Night Sisters. Then when Ahsoka started, I was like, I really should watch Clone Wars. I still have never watched Clone Wars, right? I did a power, push through all of them, watched all the episodes, and I was just like, oh, okay, I get it. I think that's good. I think the Night Sisters magic is just another iteration of the Force and does focus more on the Sith side of the Force and to the dark side itself, obviously. I mean, bringing up zombies and stuff like that. So, I mean, of course it is. But I think that's the growing part that we need,
Yes.
with the Force. We need it to expand. We need it to say there's all these different opportunities and things. There are these kind of powers inside the comic books that are no longer considered canon anymore, but they show this stuff in the comics, and I'm glad they're kind of trying to find a way to kind of show these things into the show itself. So I think this is something that needs to grow. We need to expand the powers. We need to showcase it more.
I agree, because I think it's how it builds the universe into something bigger, because in some ways, like the previous movies, especially like the original trilogy, and even in some ways the prequel trilogy, it's a very like dry universe in terms of like kind of mysticism, and then there's the Force.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of this like out like this kind of thing that exists outside of like science, and everything else is very sciencey and very technical, and like it's all technology kind of based. And then there's the Force, and I think for one, I think it's good because it just gives the Jedi something else to fight, and like something else to it's a different kind of Force than they've encountered before. Or if it's something an alien that doesn't use the Force or is immune to it, whatever. I just think that's the kind of new threats that we need to build new trilogies off of. We need we can't just keep doing another Palpatine with just your typical dark Jedi tropes. We need a Night Sister plot where it's like it's the Force, but it's also different, and it's got this part of it that the Jedi can't quite understand, or it kind of counters their Force in a certain way. I think that's how you make the stakes different and more interesting. I think and I think it's the same vein of like, I hope one day they do the Yuz Hunvong. I don't know if you're familiar with them, Joel, but like a species that comes and just is completely immune. I think that's a great idea for how do you challenge, like if the main characters of this universe are all powerful like space wizards, you've got to find a way to challenge that in ways that isn't just, oh no, bad space wizard. You know what I mean?
The bad space wizard.
So yes, I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of just get more weird shit into Star Wars like that, and that kind of spiritual, kind of mystical side of things.
There's the species that Thrawn is, the Chris, right?
Yes,
is what they're called. I want more explanation of that too, because according to the lore, females of the Chris are actually Force sensitive, but they're actually like harbored by the Chris Empire themselves to actually focus on their ships, because they use those Force powers in order to guide their ships and everything else. So it's like one of these weird little side things that I'm like, that's interesting, and we should expand more on that.
And then there's the plot. I don't know if this is from Legends or if this is from the new iteration of Thrawn, but like the idea that like the Grisks are this other like species that exists, and his main goal is that he feels like he has to have this united galaxy in order to fight off the Gisks someday. You know what I mean?
That's from the Legends. It is.
Here's the thing. That would have been that kind of added detail. Like, I would love it someday if they're like, hey, guess what? The Emperor knew about them too. And that's actually why he was doing a lot of his stuff too. Like, just to make those characters a little more interesting and a little more dynamic and a little less, mustache twirly evil. You know what I mean?
Laugh a little me.
Yeah. And I think that is what the Star Wars universe needs. We need, we need Darth Vader, but we need to like have the nuance of who he ended up being from the beginning. You know what I mean? And so Yeah, I'm a fan of all that stuff. Please give us more. Please give us more interesting villains with complicated motivations that are sometimes admirable or understandable.
And
You
I
know,
think with Filoni,
give us
maybe
more
we're gonna get
Thanos
that.
in Star Wars, right?
Yes, I'll give you that entirely. I think with Filoni, maybe we're going to get that, but just like Donovan has been saying, that is a continual problem. Is the ever presence of Disney executive teams.
Yeah, and to a degree, it's this like thing too of like Disney is still primarily a kid company, right? Like their theme parks. I know there's Disney adults, but like their theme parks are marketed towards kids. Like
Sure.
the majority of their output is made for kids or young teenagers, right? Or that area. Like Marvel is all marketed towards young people as well. And so, and I guess there is that fear of like, oh, we got to keep it simple for the kids kind of idea. And then I'm just like, yeah, but remember Pixar? Remember what they did? Remember they didn't keep it simple for the kids and it worked. You know what I mean?
Heck, man, cartoons since the
Did it
beginning,
both?
right?
Yeah. So, but well, wait, you ruined those guys too. Never mind. Anyway.
No, I agree with both of you.
Dare
I
you, sir?
I mean,
agree with
the
both
best,
of
the
you.
last good toy. I mean, Toy Story 3 or was probably the last good Pixar movie. I don't know. Did that come out after the one about emotions with Amy Poehler in it?
No, it was before.
No, I come way before.
Yeah, that was 2010. 2010 is when
Toy Story
3 came out. And personally, my favorite's still Wally. So I mean, there you go.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like, yeah.
Elemental's good. I've watched it 1.5 times
It
a
wasn't
day
bad.
the
Okay.
last month.
Is that Disney
Traverse
Pixar or
the-
is that just Disney?
It's Pixar.
Animation.
It's Pixar.
Okay.
It's Pixar.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
good.
It's not bad.
It's cute.
not bad.
I'll have to check it out.
Some good animation in there. I agree with you guys about the magic stuff. I think we should keep pushing it. I especially love the idea of other threats in terms of characters who the Force doesn't affect them. I can't think of it, but in the Thrawn trilogy, there's a snake or a thing he gets from a planet in the galaxy that basically it coils around his area in the starship, and that's how Luke can't kind of do his Force around him. And I was like, it stops George Sabaoth from fucking with him also. So I want to kind of talk another question here. Do you guys think it's weird that, say, the Wells come to where Thrawn is, right, and where Thrawn and Ezra is, and it's like, I guess on this desert planet, Thrawn found the Night Sisters there and brought them back, and then they've been collecting. I just feel like they've been in this for 5 years, right, and they've been trying to communicate with the galaxy. When I kind of was hoping that this. I think part of it was our expectations that we were going to live in this new galaxy with new planets and new people and new species. But it kind of feels like it was a plot point to get Thrawn back to, the regular galaxy that we know it. Was it an issue for you guys to be like, here's this random desolate planet and Ezra's been on here for 5-6 years, not really doing anything, just hanging out?
We still might be there for a while. We don't know. Season
True.
2, man. I mean, Ahsoka and Sabine are still there. Balin's still there. His little pal. I'm sorry. I still want to go back to something. You said something I didn't like about the Ahsoka series. There is something I didn't like.
Sure.
Yeah, that freaking waste of like Sith apprentice that we never figured anything out about him. He just got swiped down once and it was over. And I was like, that's upsetting.
I think it was just to tee up, the Night Sister's ability to resurrect or a vessel or something, that was kind of
maybe because I think when you hit them, it showed like sort of like the Night Sisters magic coming out. Yeah,
it had the same green. It had the same green mist. I mean, I was speculating it could be Star Killer, could be
we did the Star
a
Killer
clone
series,
of Luke. It could be anything, So we were, I was all over the theories on that one, but
yeah.
I
what
mean,
do you think, Daniel?
I will say that like it is a little weird that Ezra was just on the same planet as. Was he on the same planet as Thrawn? Was Thrawn there for 5 years?
They went together.
They went together.
Yeah, so that he was just like on the other side of the planet for 5 years, and Thrawn didn't care, and Ezra wasn't.
I think they were constantly trying to find him the entire time, though, because he talked about how, hey, we've been. And Enoch was telling, which that's perhaps my favorite new Stormtrooper character that's showed up for a while.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
I hope
he's not
like
a Captain Phasma. Yeah,
exactly. It's like they're so disappointing.
Oh man,
it's like, but great lines right there. I'm gonna start telling everybody, die well.
Yeah.
But I think they hinted that. I said, look, we have been going out here trying to find different people, and it's a hostile environment. We're dealing with different tribal issues that are constantly fighting back at us. So I think that they've initiated said, yeah, we're trying to find them, but we got to deal with these bandits. We got to deal with this. Our numbers are thin because of this. So there's 5 years
Sure.
there. I mean, I equate it to, I guess I'm going back to Roman culture, but basically, even though much as they look like Caesar in Gaul, it also looks like, that's basically Hadrian's Wall. They are that last line of defense. I'm like,
Sure.
everything past there? No.
Sure, I get it. There was a line from Ezra that kind of was like, I couldn't approach the bench, so to speak, because it was just too hostile and I couldn't, I was gonna be outnumbered. But also just it feels a little convenient for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, like
I honestly think it would have worked better. I do have a little bit of gripe with Ezra as a character. I think he should have been more scarred from basically feeling like he had left. He would never see anyone he loved again in a way. You know what I mean? I think
he was a little too cheery one day.
He was just a bit. I think he should have been more this like he can't even believe it when Sabine's there because he just thinks it's a dream. You know what I mean? This kind of like I've dreamt of this, but I can't believe it when it's like almost like shock, being in shock when he's rescued, kind of thing. I think there's something that would have worked, like him this being kind of this like refugee like character that's like been kind of psychologically tortured just from being alone. He's got these little guys, but that's like I think there is something there that would have just made that feel a bit more realistic, maybe even that he just was a bit too peppy, when things like were like, hey, let's go home. You know what I mean? I think I've been waiting for 20 minutes, like not 5 years and like eating, I don't know what he's eating, plants and like, I just think there could have been an element of like, he's been on the run. He's been hiding for 5 years. He's barely had any social life. He's written off any hope of getting back, and so that they find him and they, I think that might've been more an interesting way to develop him. But I know they're also like, trying to be consistent from the show. I
think that's what they're trying to do. He
did feel like Ezra from the show.
He really did.
Better and worse.
He did an excellent job. I thought the actor was doing good.
I agree with you, Daniel. I think it would be the only time where it's like where you see like we go from Luke happy to Luke Last Jedi, where this would actually kind of make sense, where this guy is kind of more beaten down. He's been hunted for 5 or 6 years. But so I think that all that makes sense. And I kind of wish they had done that, but it works. And it works for me, even saying all that, because Ahsoka is so down the whole thing. She's a little more peppier at the end, of course. But Sabine, which just kind of brings me to this. It's like, thank God, at least Rosario Dawson's there and the guy playing Ezra, because I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's her fault, but I just do not like Sabine's character. I just think it's like the acting or her dialogue. Maybe it's the blocking, but it just seems like a cartoon character and not a real living person. And I just cannot get behind her at all.
I don't hate her. I don't.
My biggest gripe in the show.
I enjoy her, and a lot of the time, I think sometimes there's a little bit of like her reactions are a little overacted, or like she does have that a little bit. But I like her character. I like that she's like Mandalorian trying to become Jedi, that kind of stuff. I think.
Yeah, but just imagine real quick, like that character in any of the sequel trilogy movies talking to Kylo Ren or Daisy Ridley. It just does not work at all.
But that doesn't. I mean, that's fine to me. I guess.
Different story.
I don't think so.
I guess to me, it's a thing of just like
just because the story is
what
like
I feel
a
like
good one.
I like where I feel like they're going with her and Ahsoka and like their dynamic, and I'm assuming. I mean, in my mind, this is like. She's only going to get better too, as she's been frustrating at times just from her character choices, but I think that's part of her character, I guess.
I think it is too. I would have to agree with Daniel on that. I think what it is she's trying to embody that frustration of failing as a Jedi and trying to become a Jedi, but still knowing that she's a Mandalorian. And then, because it seemed like there was a change when she stayed behind a little bit with Ahsoka. All right. Second she stays behind with Ahsoka. There's a little more to her. There's a little more to the character. So I'm just like, let's see what happens.
And I think I can't remember. I guess I don't think this wasn't in Rebels, I guess, but like the whole idea of why Ahsoka stops training her. I think when that came out, honestly, that we probably could have used a flashback because I think that was a big moment of like why it happened at all. And I think maybe they should have. I mean, maybe we should have seen that from episode 1. Seeing the reason that Ahsoka says like basically like rejects Sabine, because I think that within context of that, and then her and Ahsoka's relationship, and then kind of Ahsoka saying, I'll be there for you no matter what, because my master always was, he always backed me no matter what. And I think I like what they're doing with that relationship. I think I would have changed just a little bit of the storytelling, like I said, like maybe seen some flashbacks, maybe made that a bigger moment earlier that kind of set up, because I think it's like once you realize that, it recontextualized a lot of like Sabine for me from the show. And it makes me, okay, this makes sense. Like she's kind of this like person that is desperate for someone to believe in her because, everyone's kind of given up on her. And so going to find Ezra is like, it's not just, I miss my friend. It's like, there's only one person left that's like on my team in a way. And I've got to go be with that person, or at least try to find them. So I like what they're doing. It's not always executed perfectly. I don't think the actress is doing a horrible job. I think sometimes just some of the lines don't work as well as others. But I really like where they're going with her and Ahsoka. And I think there's a lot of good places to go with it.
I think
I agree.
you could solve most of my issues with her and the show if you get you do a different editing style. I think you could improve her performance through editing. I think you could improve.
You're right.
The pacing
sometimes
in the show.
Sometimes her cartoonish reactions are like when we hold for 10 seconds on a reaction shot, and it's like you just cut before that. You know what I mean? And so I think you're right. I think in some ways the pacing of the show does all the actors a little bit of a disservice. And I will say it feels like the showrunner wrote all the scripts and was in the editing room, right? Because it's just like, no, but it just is a little bit of vanity in that, like where you just feel like, but we need to hold on that shot for 10 seconds. Yeah, but think about all the, you know what I mean? It's just that so kind of artist. Yeah, exactly. That's like, no, but it means something. And you're just like, no, but the audience doesn't care at this point. Like the audience is checked out after this second. So maybe you, but like, we're trying to make this for general audiences. So I just feel like that's the only level of just, it's like one of the few times where I'm like, maybe they just needed a little more studio oversight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would be totally fine with Filoni being the head writer, the showrunner, and you get like 2 or 3 more other voices in there that are.
You get the writer. You get the guy from Andor, the showrunner from him, to like help you co-write some scripts, or maybe be a part of the editing.
He just needs some helps in terms of. I think animation, the way you tell a story in animation is different than you tell in live action.
I agree.
Oh, it totally is.
I think the pacing of like an animated show and the way the characters speak is just different than a live action thing. I think he's still holding on to some of those sensibilities. And it's like, I mean, look at The Mandalorian. It's like if you could just have Filoni be the head writer, but then that's when The Mandalorian is the best, right? Was when you have Filoni in there with Favreau, but then you have Rick Fumiyama directing, and that's when you're getting peak Star Wars. It's like, but you want to be a little reverse. You want Filoni being the head guy instead of Favreau, and Favreau coming in and like, here's the movie filmmaking live action sensibilities that you're missing in the pacing and the editing. But then you have Rick Fumiyama coming in, who's a great Star Wars voice for directing, and have him. That's the secret sauce, I think. But we haven't got there yet. And to be fair,
this is Filoni's first project he's ever been in charge of that's live action, right? So like it is his first steps into a new medium in some ways as a showrunner. And so I hope that he will only get better. I would assume. You
got to give the man credit, because I think there was an interview or something behind the scenes where they interviewed him like, hey, what's it like directing like live action for the first time? He said something, I'm paraphrasing, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. And to have that kind of humility and be able to recognize that means you can go you can go beyond forever.
You can improve yourself.
You can always be getting better. You're not like stuck in your ways. And so I think he will always be getting better. And I'm hoping for that at least. And so
I think I've got a lot of faith in Favreau.
Yeah.
Or Filoni, excuse me.
I it sounds like I'm very negative on this. Part of this is I'm trying to drum up conversation, and the part is I do
I know
have.
you're trying to have a conversation. I don't know what you're doing.
I'm also have gripes with it as well, but overall, I had a great time this season. There's some Star Wars imagery in there that I think it's up there with the best of all time. Anakin Force going back and forth between Darth Vader and him. I mean, even Ahsoka, losing her lightsaber and killing, I can't think of her name, with her blade, and I mean, that shit's cool.
Yeah.
It's badass.
Sabine catching
I
lightsaber
will say-
kind of to Kylo Ren or Rey with the light, that's just cool.
Yeah.
I will say a legitimate gripe, especially in this last episode. We needed some dismemberment. Like, guys,
Yes.
It's zombies.
And just, okay, I'm not huge into the whole, like, saber debate. Oh, like, how are they surviving that? But if you can stab Sabine all the way through and she survives, but you just kind of slash the lady across the torso and she dies, it gets a little bit unbelievable.
Yes. I agree with that.
And that's part where it felt like a cartoon too, because like in cartoons you don't get dismemberment, it's for kids. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, but we need to chop some stormtrooper elbows off, like arms off, and we need to chop some heads off. Like that would have added a level of coolness to me to the finale a little bit. Anyway.
Easy fix, right? When you slice up a limb for the stormtrooper, it's like the green mist kind of comes out, a little bit.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
It doesn't
That's all
need
you gotta
blood.
do.
It doesn't need blood, and but it just
would
it would
cauterize
have
it
felt
anyway,
a bit more just epic, I think, if it was just a bit more visceral in a way.
I agree.
Yeah. I do think one of like my favorite scenes though is when Ezra is fighting one of the undead, right?
Yes.
And he slams his lightsaber right into him. You see the guy just kind of stop, look
Yeah.
down on him. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
There's some
And
there's some
undead,
good
that's
stuff
like
in
great.
there.
Like, how do you kept like fighting something that doesn't die? That's a great new challenge. And then, in the Star Wars.
Yes,
It is.
That's
It
a lot
kinda-
of fun.
It still kind of felt like they were. I mean, they were walking around like literal zombies. At some points, other points, they were just like human guys, stormtrooper guys. Sometimes they were zombies walking around.
Well, I was like, it is interesting that they like figured out how to open the door. Maybe the Night Sisters can like see through their eyes and control them directly. I don't know. Either way,
I don't either.
My final kind of thoughts on Ahsoka here would be that, I have all these complaints. I have all these things that I can, and they are mostly nitpicks, right? They're like,
Sure.
They are things that as a filmmaker I notice, and that as a filmmaker slightly annoy me, not as a general just consumer of this. And so there's this element of like, technically I'm kind of looking at this differently than maybe anyone else or most people are watching this, right? But for what I can say is like, for the first time, maybe since Disney has taken control of Star Wars, it feels like they're on the right track, right? Listen, I think that Force Awakens is a really fun movie. I think it tanks dramatically once they introduce Death Star, but bigger. You know what I mean? Like once you just start redoing things we have already seen multiple times in the Star Wars universe, it just loses a lot of just interestingness to me, right? And I think, of course, we can get into the problems the rest of the trilogy had, but I think this is the first time where it's like the person with the reins with Disney and Star Wars has an idea, and it's not something we've seen before on screen. It's not something we've done before, just repeating kind of cycles with Star Wars before. It's something different. It is magical, and it's a little Game of Thronesy, and it's a little bit all these other things. It's got zombies. I just think for the first time, really, since Disney has owned it, it's like we've got a visionary making Star Wars content, not someone that's just trying to check nostalgia boxes and make good money at the box office, And so that is like, in some ways, like the fact that we got Ahsoka, the fact that we're getting more and we're getting Filoni's movie and all this kind of stuff says like, okay, somebody at Disney's figuring something out, and that gives me hope, more hope than I've had. Listen, I loved The Mandalorian, but it also was very safe to me. It wasn't breaking any boundaries. It wasn't doing anything that was like, it wasn't really expanding the lore too much even, right? But it was a solid Western, fun action film with great characters. This is like, okay, not everything's perfect. The action isn't always perfect, and everything, but man, they are trying. And they're trying to do something different and something new. And like, that is what Star Wars needs to be successful, right? And so I am a fan of this show. in some ways I'm a bigger fan of it than I enjoyed watching it. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? I'm like, yes, we have this show. I didn't love watching every second. I mean, there's things that bothered me, but yes, I will, go this show and go more like it. So those are kind of my final thoughts.
That's good. I think that there's the secret, everybody. It's like you've seen that Donovan and Daniel both see it from the filmmaker's perspective. I see it most of the time from the actor / fan perspective. So I'm just like, yeah, let's do this thing. They see a lot of the technical things that I really didn't have a big of an issue with, but that's a fair gripe. I understand what you're saying entirely. And like, as far as the Star Wars stories go, I mean, the Disney Plus stuff, my number one is still Andor. I know that's shocking for me to say. Right next to it is definitely going to be Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. But this expands that universe. We get more Star Wars lore in there that makes things a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. I mean, that galaxy far, far away is just getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. So I do agree with you on that, Daniel. I think we're in a process now. We're about to start maybe seeing them on the right path and see this universe get bigger and bigger. And that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think ultimately I'm always in the camp for new ideas that fail versus playing it safe over and over
Yes.
again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then disappoint me in that way also. But I always respect, trying something new. And I think the big hope and the big dream for me is that these ideas like Ahsoka and those kind of mythology building corners of the universe keep growing and people latch onto that are the casual viewer. So eventually Filoni can stop something like the Rey sequel movie that I'm not sure any diehard Star Wars fan is asking for. And maybe he'll replace it. I think Kathleen Kennedy's an amazing producer. You can't write the history of Hollywood without her, but I don't think she's the right producer for Star Wars.
I think she is.
And I think that Filoni, this should be the breeding ground for Filoni to take. There's no other person that he's the next George Lucas. He has been for a long time.
Ideally, Filoni becomes the James Gunn, right, of DC Universe.
Yes.
I think you still do need the other guy. You need the other guy that can do the financials. He's not ready to be the producer that can make sure budgets, movies get made under budget and all these kinds of things. But as far as the person kind of being at the top and saying, where are we going the next 10 years in Star Wars, right? Yep. That is who we want. That kind of man. And really, there's no other candidates at this point. We need Dave Filoni at that point of just being the creative director of Star Wars in a way.
One thing you can really get the tempo or the temperature from Disney at the moment, since Bob Iger's been back, is that he's like, why are we making so many Disney Plus content shows? It's like basically bankrupting us in a lot of ways. And you can feel the energy being fixing me push back into live action or into movies. Well,
to be fair, like on the other side of the Disney franchise coin, what Marvel has done on Disney Plus was kind of hurt them almost and like continually like done things that have made people less excited and less interested in the movies. You know what I mean? And so like there is, I agree. It seems like Disney is realizing like, it's not just, you can't make really good stories with numbers. Oh, well, $20 million, or let's say $80 million made Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I'm just guessing on the budget. Well, if we just do that 10 times, we can have 10 Guardians of the Galaxies. That's not how it works, right? You know what I mean? That it's much more of a people-oriented. You've got to have the right people and the right time. It can't be too rushed, and they got to have the right resources and all these kinds of things. And so I agree. It seems like Disney is figuring that out the hard way, which they shouldn't have had to figure this out. Like, with the right person in charge, you should have been able to see this, but I think it's just a symptom of capitalism that focuses on quarterly profits above everything else, and everything needs to return profit now, not in 10 years. But I agree. I'm hoping Andor, this, and all these things are a sign that Disney is getting it figured out.
So I'm about to make you mad, Daniel. Are you ready for it?
I don't know.
I like She-Hulk.
I don't hate it, but I
liked it
definitely, I thought the ending was...
I know. I thought the ending was fun. I was like, oh, you're going to go real meta now. Okay, whatever.
I thought the ending ended up being like a way they got out of bad stories. And I think you could have had good stories and still done that ending, and I think it would have been better. Like, it just... that's...
Hulk has a son now wearing like
Here's
a
the thing.
surfer haircut.
I actually like.
I think it was a Tibetan
um,
Tibetan monk haircut, but sure.
I actually
Whatever.
like She-Hulk the character way better than I liked her show. I actually think
Yes.
she did a good job as the character, and I liked her character. I just thought the things they did with her were mostly uninteresting or didn't.
I like the show.
It was
a lot, though.
it was
I thought
not
fun.
Tatiana Maslany. I love me some Charlie Cox Daredevil.
Yeah.
But it's another example of this is the extreme version of it. Joel is there's a Thanos level. There's a Thanos ice cream store in Asgard, and the universe it's like it can't take itself seriously in a
Thor:
lot
Love
of
and
ways.
Thunder, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
like
people are
that's,
saying that'd be like
that's-
having like a Holocaust themed
Yeah.
restaurant in like Germany, after the World War II or something.
Yeah.
You never been there? You never been to that one?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's just
yeah.
like
It's really
that's-
good. Most of the stuff's burnt. Oh,
It's a wild inconsistencies within the universe that doesn't make it feel real anymore. That's the problem that MCU has. One of the big problems it has. I'm still a diehard fanboy. I'm rewatching Loki 1. Loki season 2 drops tonight, so I'm excited for that.
Is that tonight?
Is it the
Tonight.
whole thing? Are they doing like
Episode.
feeding?
Yeah.
Episode.
6 weeks, baby. 6 weeks, baby.
I do love some Loki. I'm
Guess
excited
what?
about that.
Podcaster for one's gonna be talking about the next 6 weeks.
Yeah,
It's
the early
Loki.
reviews, I saw some that were not high on it.
Yes,
so
Star
I'm
Trek
hoping
Lower
that's
Decks.
good.
Awesome.
I mean, it's got short round in it, so woof. Oh, Star Trek Lower Decks. Yeah, I need to catch up. My wife and I are on season 4 of Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
So we are working our way through.
Lower
We
Decks
just
is
got
good.
to
I
like
dig it.
the good, like where the story's really picking up, and it's like every episode's just like a banger. Man, Deep
Nice.
Space Nine is such a great show.
Well,
Yeah, basically, so that was always the Vietnam one. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Donovan. I interrupted you.
no. I wish we could keep talking for another hour. I've got so
We
many
could.
more
We got
things
stuff to
we
do,
could-
though.
We could talk about. We could talk about Star Wars, Marvel, blah blah blah. Maybe we could have you on the next 6 weeks or so. Talk about Loki and
Yeah.
seeing what that's doing with the larger Marvel Cinematic
Absolutely.
Universe.
I'm always happy to be a guest, and I appreciate it when you guys invite me, or if you humor me when I try to invite myself. So
Hey, we're always down. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we're always down for anything like that. So, real quick, listeners, or Daniel, sorry, how can listeners find us or listen to us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/2for1mail and let us know what you thought of Ahsoka. Were you pretty critical of it? Maybe you ate it all up. Are you excited for where we're going next? Let us know at bit.ly/2for1mail.
And Joe, how can our listeners find you on the cool things that you do?
you can find me on my YouTube page, which is institutionalized, where most of the time it's me and my family going around doing different type of things in the state of Arkansas for you to showcase it. However, lately we've started a whole shorts category, even on a TikTok, all about dad jokes. So
I
feel
love
free
them.
to check that out.
I've seen a few of those on Facebook. They're great.
I watch them all, Joe. I watch them all.
We
And I
try
try
our
to
best.
memorize them. I try so I can teach my son someday.
that power is coming to you, okay,
Yeah,
Donovan?
yeah.
It'll be in you.
I feel it. I feel stronger every day, Joel.
It's an innate, it just happens to you that all of a sudden you just make the easiest jokes possible in every situation. Just
Yeah.
the most
Well, I've been
obvious
wearing
and easiest jokes. Yeah.
I've been wearing khaki shorts and white tennis shoes for 15 years, so I've been ready for a long time. So I've been really ready. Anyway, everyone, thank you, Joel, for being on here. Of course, everyone find
Absolutely.
us on youtube.com/241 Studios. My name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
Oh, and I'm Joel Williams. Die well, Vandalorians.
And we have spoken.